Hello! This is the What's New presentation for Answers version 2025.2.0. In this session, we will go through the latest developments that enhance both day-to-day usage and more advanced workflows. Together we will go through the latest developments, grouped into three main categories. First, we will see Dashlet enhancements that make dashboards more flexible and more informative, including variables, comparisons, density options, list selection, chart selection, and integrated PDF reports. Then, we will focus on workflow and modeling, where we introduce web-based model comparison, morphing, and actions automation. Finally, we will look at new admin tools that simplify microservice management, monitoring of BAL services, and control of system connections. This structure will help us understand how each feature fits into the overall Answers workflow. Let's start with some enhancements in Dashlets. Variables can now be defined at Dashlet level, allowing parameters to be set dynamically and reused across different parts of the Dashlet. These variables can be referenced directly in data queries to filter or shape the retrieved information, and they can also be passed as inputs to actions, enabling more flexible automation scenarios. To support a wide range of use cases, several UI options are available for interacting with variables, including combo boxes, radio buttons, text fields, and sliders. It is also possible to populate variable values directly from a data source, ensuring that selections reflect the current content of the data. Some new comparison capabilities have been introduced in Answers. It is possible to set a specific simulation model or run as reference and present comparison information of other variants to it. This is currently available for panels of type list, table, bar chart, and media for the images. In this mode, the key reports like values, images, from the different runs or models are matched according to a common attribute, usually their name, and are compared. In bar charts, the difference can appear in the tooltip, or you can have all values shown normalized to accommodate different values ranges. In lists and tables, a new column displays the calculated difference either as absolute value or as percentage. In images, matched images are displayed side by side, keeping the reference image always on the left. Additionally, there is an option to display as image the RGB value differences of the compared images in order to spot where there are major differences. A new panel type has been introduced for the visualization of PDF reports directly inside Answers. With this panel, we can open PDF files within a Dashlet and use standard PDF capabilities, such as adding comments or highlights, zooming into specific areas, and printing. This allows us to keep formal documentation, plots, and dashboards together in a single environment without having to switch to an external viewer. The feature is particularly useful for sharing finalized reports alongside interactive data views, keeping context and traceability in one place. List panels have been enhanced with the option to select or deselect all items at once. This is especially helpful when working with long, paginated lists, where previously we could only select items page by page. Users can now include all entries with a single action and refine the selection as needed or clear everything and start from an empty selection. This improvement significantly speeds up common workflows in list-driven operations. Selection capabilities have also been extended to bar charts and histogram charts. It is now possible to select individual bins or groups of bins directly in the chart, and the selected bins feed an implicit data source. This means the selection can be used to drive other panels or to trigger follow-up actions based on the chosen ranges. Dashlets now support different density display options to balance readability with information density. From the Options tab, users can choose between low and high-density layouts. High density makes the layout more compact, so more information can be shown at once in data-heavy dashboards. Low density increases spacing and margins, offering a more spacious arrangement that is easier to read, especially in presentations or on smaller screens. This means that when high density is selected, users can fit significantly more results in panels in the same screen area, improving visibility in workflows that require comparing many items at once. Now we will turn our focus to modeling-related features. A new capability allows us to open AnswerWeb directly in comparison mode when two models are selected. The models are presented in exploded view, which helps clarify structural differences by separating the components visually. Geometrical differences between the two models are highlighted automatically, allowing users to identify modifications quickly and understand their impact. This streamlined workflow supports faster review cycles and more confident validation of design changes. Morphing actions are now available directly from the web interface. Users can trigger morph operations that act on specific parameters or boxes without having to leave the browser environment. Morph parameters can be adjusted interactively, and the corresponding changes are applied to the model via ANSA in the background. This approach reduces the time spent switching between tools and supports faster what-if studies, since multiple morph variants can be generated and evaluated more efficiently. Execute actions allow ANSA or meta processes to be launched remotely through Answers. Actions are run on the items selected in the list panel, making it easy to trigger automated tasks directly from the web. Once an action is executed, its progress can be monitored through the action status list, where users can see entries transitioning through states such as running, in queue, or done. Finally, we will look at features related to reporting and administration. DM microservices management has been simplified through a dedicated interface for defining and controlling system connections. Administrators can now define connections easily by specifying only the DM path, which reduces setup complexity and the risk of configuration errors. Once defined, these connections can be monitored, and their status can be controlled, including restart actions when needed. This centralizes microservice handling and helps ensure that underlying services remain available and responsive for end users. A new BAL services page provides real-time monitoring of beta apps launcher services. Administrators can access each BAL service and view properties such as type, status, and CPU usage, gaining better insight into resource consumption. Additionally, failed BAL services can be easily identified, along with the user who initiated the corresponding process. Putting everything in one admin page makes it easier to manage the services and keep everything running smoothly. System connections can now be monitored with real-time status indicators, allowing administrators and power users to quickly verify whether a connection is healthy. From the same interface, it is also possible to access the SBDRM homepage associated with a connection, enabling faster navigation to the underlying system. This tight integration helps maintain smooth data flows between Answers and SBDRM and shortens the time needed to investigate or resolve connection issues. This concludes the overview of the new features. Now I will switch to a live demonstration so you can see how these capabilities work directly inside Answers. Let's move on to the demo. Variables can be defined from the Add Variable option here. We first define a name. Let's say that we want variables for projects. We can have two different types: input, which can be string or float, and then we can define values: any, distinct values, list of fixed values, or a list from a data source. This is something we will see later on. For the list of fixed values, we can specify how the project name will appear in our variants list. One name project could be Taurus, or we can add Venza as another project. The name should be unique, so we need to select something else here because I already have another variable with that name. From the Data Sources and Panels area, we also have the Variables field where we can see all the variables we have defined. So we can go to the Projects variable and, with Edit, we can visualize the values and make any modifications we need. Now let's see how we add these variables into our panel. We can add a new panel here of type Variable UI Control. We can name it Projects Variables. We go to Properties, and here we select which variable will appear in this UI. By pressing Enter, we can choose the Projects2 variable that we just created. That we can also define how this variable will appear as a select box, a drop-down, or as a radio button. Let's choose this option and press OK. This panel will be placed here, and we will move it to the top area of the page, next to this list. Now let's see how these three variables affect the list of simulation runs we have on the left. This is a list of runs, and by going to Edit Data Source and adjusting the filter, we search for a DM type of simulation run, and we have to adjust the query accordingly based on the BetaQL filter. In this query, we will include our variable. So we say, name contains, and then we add the double brackets. This is our convention to add variables or transformers in queries. The variable projects_2 will appear listed. Upon selection, and by pressing OK and refresh, the list of items appears in the preview area. Now the name of each run will include the value of the selected variable. So the selected variable affects the result of the list of simulation runs. Now, let's see how we can define variables directly from data sources. We start by creating a new data source, and in the feeder we select the method that accepts a DM type and a property and returns a list of accepted values for this property. In our case, this will be the project property of the run. By pressing OK and refresh, we extract from the DM schema all the available projects. Next, we go to the variables section and create a new variable of input type string, but this time the values will come from the defined data source. Here we select our data source, which contains the list of projects. Then we match the attribute we want to use, in our case, the name attribute. In this way, our variable automatically receives the list of projects directly from the data source. Now the values for the project are dynamically retrieved from the DM schema. After that, we go to our variable panel, edit it, open the properties, and add one more variable. We select the project variable in Selection button. Here, we can now see the full list of projects retrieved from all the simulation models. And of course, we can use this variable again inside another query if we want to filter based on the selected project. In the same way, we have defined a variable that contains three distinct strings under a variable called keyValues group. This variable will be the filter for those two panels. The selection on the simulation run list feeds those two panels based on the applied filtering. In the first panel, the key values of the selected simulation run that contains the string energy in their name will appear. Respectively, the same will happen for the intrusion value. Now, let's move to the comparison feature, which is available for different panels such as bar charts, tables, images, and lists. Here, I have a list of simulation runs, and two of them are selected. To activate comparison across the different panels, I first need to define which simulation run will serve as the reference. To do this, I go to the panel, open the properties, and under Color Comparison, I switch to Attribute Comparison mode and set the ID of the reference run. Then I enable the reference column in the panel's columns configuration. This will display the asterisk next to the run that will act as the reference. Once this is done, I can select the reference run directly from the list. Now on the panels that are populated based on this selection, we will have to activate the comparison mode. To do this, we have to go to the panel properties and find the comparison option. This option is added in all the panels that support comparison. By default, this is disabled. Here, we can choose to show the difference directly in the tooltip. With this enabled, when we hover over a bin, the percentage difference is highlighted for the model being compared to the reference one. In the same way, we can also activate comparison for a table panel. Through the panel's properties, we find the comparison mode. Here we can display both the value and the percentage difference for each row that is being compared. When comparison is enabled, a new column appears next to each run, showing the percentage difference relative to the reference run. We can follow the same approach for comparing images. By editing the panel's properties, we go to the comparison mode. There are two options, the side-by-side comparison, and the option that lets us choose which attribute will be used for matching. So, if we have a set of images from a simulation run, the matching will be done based on the selected attribute, in this case, the image name. Let's continue with the list panel. Again, in the properties, under comparison mode, we can display the percentage difference. Here, we define what we want to compare. In our case, the magnitude maximum value, and the matching is again done based on the item name. So if two entries have the same name, we compare their magnitude maximum values and display the difference here. For this comparison to be valid, we need to have two runs selected. And if we sort the list by name, we can clearly see the difference column, along with the asterisk that marks the reference simulation run. Let's continue with the introduction of the new PDF panel. From the Add Panel option, we now have a new panel type called PDF Viewer. There aren't many settings here. The main thing we need to do is select the data source. In the properties, we can choose how many PDFs to show per page, either 1 or 2, and we can also set the orientation. Here, I have a list of PDF reports stored in my DM. When I select one item from the list, the PDF panel displays that report. If I select a second item, the panel shows both reports side by side. The panel includes all the well-known options like draw annotations to highlight specific areas, download the PDF to our system, printing, and we can also change the orientation. We can navigate through the different pages of the PDF report, and we can zoom in using the Control key and the mouse wheel. Finally, we also have a full screen mode, which makes it easier to compare the two PDF reports and see the differences more clearly. Let's continue with the selection in the bar charts and the histogram charts. In this panel, we have activated the selection from the properties of the panel. Here the selection checkbox is already activated and grayed out as we cannot deselect it because it feeds another panel. We can select some bins from the chart, and on the right there is a list that receives the selection of the chart. With the Clear Selection option, the bins are cleared and the list is updated at the same time. The same happens for the histogram chart. The selection populates the list on the right, and on the Clear Selection the same action applies. Moving to the panel options, we can see in the properties the selection that it is activated for the bars. Now let's see how the new density option affects our dashlets. We can adjust the setting through Data Sources and Panels, Options, Density. There are two choices available, Low Density and High Density. High Density is selected by default when a new dashlet is created. This mode reduces the spacing between panels and makes the layout more compact, so more information can be shown at once in data-heavy dashboards. Of course, if you need more visual inspection, you can switch to Low Density at any time. Low Density increases spacing and margins, offering a more spacious arrangement that is easier to read. Depending on the type of simulation analysis you're doing, you may prefer additional space to better view comparisons or examine details in your results. Now let's see the Ansel web and how we can compare two different models within the same panel. When we select two DM objects, whether they are simulation runs, subsystems, or simulation models, Ansel web automatically opens in comparison mode. We don't have to apply any specific option for the comparison view. As soon as two models are selected, they will be displayed in this view mode. The two models are displayed in an exploded view, making it easier to spot the differences between them. If any geometric differences exist between corresponding parts, they are highlighted directly in the viewer. Now let's look at the new Actions feature. The actions appear also next to the Options tab, but can be defined from the home page as well. We first need to set up the configuration on the server side. This must be done by someone with administrator rights. If we navigate to the Answers installation folder, specifically under servers/bar, we find the files required to define actions. These are the 4 files I have highlighted here, and all of them need to be edited. The file that has to be renamed is the application_example_actions.properties and should eventually rename the application.properties file. One of these files contains the script that will run inside ANSA. In this script, we add the actions we want to trigger from Answers. In this example, the application expects 3 arguments, which are passed to the ENSA script. If your script needs more arguments or variables, you simply add them and adjust the script accordingly. The workflow is straightforward. In the first part of the script, you define the variables with unique names. And in the call function, you pass these variables as arguments. These arguments become the inputs sent from answers. Now let's go back to answers. In the specific dashlet, under Data Sources and Panels Actions, we can add a new action. I'll open an existing one so you can see the configuration. Here we set a name, define the connection, and then select the application. This answer action example appears with that exact name because it was defined that way in the application properties file. Scrolling down, you can see the rest of the configuration. As I mentioned earlier, this file needs to be edited as well. We must uncomment the entries for ANSA or Meta, depending on what we want to enable, and update the SH path. Everything else can remain unchanged. If you define an application called answer_example_2, then that is the name that will appear inside answers. In the argument section, we specify the inputs using the argument name format. These must match the variable names defined in the SH file, in this case, the input string and the input float. Once the actions are defined, we can enable them for any list, for example, a subsystem list. In the list properties, there is an actions entry. When you activate it, you can choose which actions apply to the subsystem you select. The additional argument of the ID should appear as is. Now, when a subsystem is selected, along with the variables we configured, variable 1, variable 2, variable 3, the ANSA action is triggered and executed in ANSA. ANSA opens the model, processes the inputs, and runs the script. In this example, we only print the arguments, but you can automate any workflow you need. And finally, if we refresh the list panel that contains the actions, we can see that the action list updates automatically. This is the complete configuration needed to enable and use actions. Under Profile System Connections, we can now see the status of all system connections, whether they are operational or if any of them have errors. For example, if the DM microservice shows an error, it means we need to check whether it is running and restart it if necessary. The same applies to the SBDRM connection status. In addition to that, we now have a new option in the DM microservice settings to configure the type, which is called Manage by Answers. The old option requires the URL where the microservice is running. With the new option, however, we only need to provide the DM path that will be used to run the DM microservice. The DM microservice is launched through Answers on a new available port and then appears in the list of available services. Here we also need to specify the name. The description field is optional, but the DM ball path value is required. With embedded authentication enabled, users do not need to manually set additional permissions. And as before, we can choose whether the service applies to all users or only to a specific group. Once the microservice is registered, we can edit it from this list and refresh its status whenever needed. The last addition is the SBDRM homepage shortcut. When you click it, you are redirected to the SBDRM landing page. In my case, I don't have SBDRM configured here, so the page isn't displayed, but normally you would see it just like this. I hope this demo is helpful. Thank you for joining.